Hello and welcome to a live Deprogrammed with Keri Smith. Today is Monday, May 12th. I hope you had a great Mother's Day and just a great weekend. I did, and it's beautiful. If you're in Texas, it is beautiful weather right now. So this is the time of year I most look forward to. It's not quite too hot yet. So I think we only have a couple of days of this, and then it's going straight into the 90s. So enjoy it if you're here. Um, Welcome. I have a pretty focused topic that just wanted to talk about today. There's so many things. I feel like lately there's so many things in the news. As you know, the news cycle has evolved to where it's not just a 24-hour news cycle anymore. We're constantly being inundated with stories, arguments. If you're on X, there's a whole war that is happening now, where people are disagreeing with one another over the referring to this emerging kind of identitarianism in some parts of the right, or at least among people who claim to be on the right, uh, whether or not that should be called woke right. There's a whole battle brewing. If you're on X, I'm sure you've seen a lot of that happening this weekend. It's kind of demoralizing to read a lot of it because you're like, wait, what is going on? The people that, I seemingly agreed with on certain things, and suddenly I'm not agreeing with them. Why is everyone fighting? I've had people in my comments saying, I don't like all the fighting. I wish some of these people would talk to each other. And I hope to do that. I'm working on a couple conversations with friends I respect and admire who disagree with me on the woke right thing. And so I'm trying to get some of those set up because I think there's a lot of talking past each other that's happening instead of with each other. So hopefully some of those are fruitful. And also I'm having these kind of conversations offline, not necessarily even on camera with an audience there, but we should be talking with each other. So I would encourage you to do that if you're someone like me who's like a bit demoralized by what's going on online lately. But I want to talk about something else today. I saw this story, and this was a story about the Darlington nurses in the UK. These are moms. I thought it was a good Mother's Day story. These are moms who've been fighting this long legal battle to ensure that they have same-sex spaces in their workplace, in the NHS, the National Health System in the UK. And I thought this was a good story to cover because I think, even though it seems like we're talking about identitarianism on the right now and this emerging ideology, I do agree with everyone who says whatever this thing is and whatever you call it, it's not nearly as big as the woke left. And that is true. I agree with that. We've scored several cultural victories, and we scored a big political victory with electing Trump. Those things are I think great advancements and signs that the culture, that people are getting tired of woke religion, of woke ideology. And yet I'm not delusional enough to think that this war is over, or that this woke religion has been beat back, and that it's not going to resurface. And I know many people who are still in it. I'm still talking to them. People in real life who are still in it, who don't quite get it, who throw the bigot accusation out, who throw the transphobe accusation out, or the homophobe accusation out without even knowing what they're talking about. And so this is another episode for people on the left. In case you're wondering, why does J.K. Rowling support same-sex spaces? Why are people fighting for this? Why are they being so, quote unquote transphobic? This is a great story. They center it around this one particular nurse, and then they tell the big story. And this is an article from the Daily Mail. So I thought we would just go through this because I was not aware of what was going on with these women until I read this. And I got a couple other pieces pulled up about it. So, um, this is a nurse. Her name is Karen. Bear with her just because her name is Karen. The headline is, I begged my bosses not to let the trans nurse who invaded our changing room take part in my intimate operation. They refused, as they didn't want to hurt his feelings. His feelings. You know how the woke always use this language about centering? That you got to center this person's feelings. They centered this man's feelings over hers. It's her operation. It's her lady parts operation. And she was in the middle of a lawsuit with him and with the hospitals. And they were like, well, we don't want to tell him he can't take part in your naughty bits operation because it might hurt his feelings. What? She's the patient and a nurse, but she's the patient. So we're going to get into this. Karen Danson. This is Karen Danson. Karen Danson's father, and the beginning of this is pretty hard to stomach, but it's important because it goes into why this was so hard for her to come forward. Okay. Karen Danson's father started to sexually abuse her when she was 6. It could have been yesterday. So vivid are the memories. The first time I was dragged downstairs at 1 a.m., says Karen, 45. He would watch porn and make me sit on his lap, but on this night, he pushed me to the floor and pulled off my nightie and made me rotate, saying he wanted to have a good look at me. I wanted to be a ballet dancer back then, and I closed my eyes and imagined myself dancing. He didn't like that. He punched me and spat at me. I picked up my nightie and ran back to bed and cried myself to sleep. After that, it happened a minimum of 3 times a week for 6 years. It is impossible to convey the horror of that abuse in a family newspaper, but Karen's account is detailed and devastating and led her to not want to be alive. She is waiving her legal right to anonymity here to tell her story, quote, because I have finally found my voice. She recalls one attack when she was about 10. Her father had climbed into the top bunk with her. She thinks she had passed out because of the pressure of his hand, which was over her face. Another time, around 2 years later, she specifies that it was in the bottom bunk. I remember shouting, "Daddy, don't do this. This is what Mummy is for." Mostly, she remembers the look on her father's face, both before and during the attacks, notably his smirk. This is her quote, his smirk because he enjoyed it. Also, his sense of entitlement about entering her bedroom and her body. This is Karen here. She has previously been anonymous. Several of these nurses at the hospital have been publicly speaking out, and then there were several who were anonymous, and she was one of the anonymous ones until now. And her background and her history, you can understand why she was anonymous because of how it was related to her childhood trauma. Quote, my dad would come in and say, "Are you not getting ready for bed yet?" Even after the worst of it ended when I was about 12, after I had kicked him hard between the legs, I would still have to jimmy rig the bathroom door shut because he'd always be trying to come in when I was in there. She stayed silent about the abuse all through her childhood and beyond because children do that even when they are no longer children. Quote, I was ashamed. It was my dirty little secret. Until recently, very few people knew, apart from her husband and the trained counselors who had taught the adult Karen trauma management techniques to cope with the nightmares and the panic attacks. Her children, now in their 20s, did not have any inkling, nor did her work colleagues at Darlington Memorial Hospital, where she has worked as a nurse for 6 years. Until one day, almost 2 years ago, when something happened in the changing room at the end of a busy shift, something that opened a Pandora's box, not just for Karen, but for every NHS employee in the country, for every public body, and certainly for the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, who last October sat opposite Karen, much as I'm doing today, and listened to her story. And you see some photos here of, these are the nurses who've been public this whole time, safe spaces for women. Quote, I didn't go into the detail I have today, but he knew I had been abused as a child. He listened and I trusted him. But how much can you trust any politician, she says, since this is still going on? Hold on one second. Oh, I'm being told that the Rumble link isn't working. Oh, I'm so sorry, John Thomas. I'm not sure. I'll have to re-upload this one. I'm not sure why that one's not working. You will have heard of the Darlington nurses, the 8 nurses who are taking legal action against their employers, County Durham and Darlington NHS Foundation Trust, because they claim they were forced to share a changing room with a male nurse who identifies as a woman despite still outwardly presenting as a man. Let me tell you about this so-called trans woman, because a lot of you in the woke left, you come in, you make all these pronouncements of faith, quite honestly, these religious like pronouncements where you're saying, trans women are women, they're women. That's not true. That's anti-science. It's not based in reality. It's not based in science. If you talk to an honest person who calls themselves trans, an honest trans person, an honest person who tries to live and present as the opposite sex, they will tell you, I am obviously not the opposite sex. That's why I am quote unquote trans. They'll be honest about it. And I promise you, if you're on the woke left, that there are honest people out there who call themselves trans, who are trying to live as the opposite sex. If you don't know any of them, I can give you some names. You should become acquainted with them. If you don't know any in person, there are people who are public. You can go and listen to people like Buck Angel or Sarah Higdon. You can go and listen to people like Blair White. This is for woke lefties, because you seem to think that all trans people, quote unquote trans people, are delusional and that they all actually believe that they are the opposite sex and that they have somehow, by having surgeries or taking hormones, that they have become the opposite sex. They have not. It's a presentation. Duh. Like, we know this. If you consider yourself an intelligent person and you're on the woke left and you're still, maintaining this fantasy, this religious cult-like fantasy that people can actually change their sex, it's one of the most absurd things you can be convinced to say. You may as well be running around saying gravity isn't real, the earth is flat. It's absurd. On its face, it's absurd. And I know a lot of you, most of you, don't believe it. Of course, you are reasonably intelligent. You don't believe it yourself, but you say it. You say trans women are women. You say it. Why? Because you, quote unquote, you center the feelings of trans people. You center the feelings of men who want to present and live as if they are women. You center their feelings over reality. You let that control your speech. You let that dictate what you say. It's very much like the emperor has no clothes story. You join in with everyone else. You can see the emperor is naked, but everyone else is saying the emperor has clothes, and so you say the emperor has clothes. You're malleable. You are easily manipulated. You are easily pushed into something with peer pressure. And it's interesting because I know a lot of you, not all of you, but a lot of you are atheists, and you have some of you, this disdain for people who believe in a creator, believe in something bigger than ourselves. And yet you say these things that you know to be false, that are not reasonable or rational or grounded in reality. And those things that you say, that this false belief that you claim you have, that trans women are women, it's hard to hold that when you see a trans woman, like the man in this story, like this male nurse they're talking about in this story. This is a man who has not taken any hormones. He's not gotten any surgery. Outwardly, he hasn't done anything to appear as a woman. He simply says, I am a woman. And he's taken a female name. He's changed his name to Rose. But he has a female partner. He's trying to have kids with this partner. He still looks like a man. He hasn't tried to look like a woman. He hasn't had the surgeries or the hormones. He's a man. And this highlights I think, the absurdity of your faith, of your religion. Because your faith, your woke faith dictates that you look at someone like this guy and say, "Well, yeah, it really is just based on what you say. It really is just based on you saying, I'm I'm a woman, so therefore I am." It's not based on anything else. So I just wanted to highlight that because that's what this the so-called trans woman in this story, obvious man, no attempt to live as a woman other than invading women's spaces, saying he's a woman, taking a woman's name. That's it. Okay. 26 women. It's 26 women in total signed a letter of complaint at this hospital. And in return, they were told by their own HR department that they were transphobic and that they were in need of re-education. That's why I call the show Deprogramming, because so many of the people in the woke left, the cult I was in for 20 years, they have been programmed. They have been re-educated. They have been indoctrinated. They've been peer pressured to say that the emperor has clothes. They have been programmed. They've been put through re-education camps, like Maoist kind of struggle sessions and re-education camps, to brainwash them and to get otherwise reasonably intelligent people to say absurd things like men can be women, which is absurd on its face. And you know it. I don't care how woke you are. I mean, you know it. So they were told that they were transphobic, these 26 women at this hospital, that they were in need of re-education. Their union also abandoned them, openly calling them bigoted. Their case, a pivotal one in the toxic gender war, is still proceeding to tribunal, even though the Supreme Court has since clarified that by law, a trans woman is a biological male. The Supreme Court just ruled this. And does not have a right to access a woman's changing room. You would think that this recent Supreme Court decision would factor in, but no, this is still going to a tribunal. They're still having to fight. The Darlington nurses who have been publicly identified so far have always said that they took the unprecedented legal action partly on behalf of more vulnerable colleagues who did not feel that they could speak out, including one victim of childhood abuse who had felt intimidated and terrified by the behavior of the trans nurse, Rose, that's the name he took, Rose Henderson, in that changing room. And here you can see some of the women. There's Karen, she's no longer anonymous. And this is one of their press conferences. Karen was that terrified colleague. This is her first interview. It was her distress that set the ball rolling in this extraordinary debacle. She broke down sobbing to colleagues after being repeatedly asked by Rose, who was wearing boxer shorts with holes in them, which meant I could see his male anatomy, she said. She was repeatedly asked by him why she wasn't getting changed. They were alone in that changing room, and she, a sex abuse survivor, the sort of woman single-sex spaces were enshrined in law to protect, she was paralyzed by fear. There's absolutely no suggestion that Rose, this guy, Rose, who has a female partner with whom he was trying to start a family, intended to cause her physical harm on that day in 2023, but she insists that Rose's half-dressed presence and behavior felt menacing. She calls Rose he throughout this interview, stressing that everything about Rose is male, apart from the name. Quote, I know that if it had happened to another woman, she might not have reacted in the way that I did, but I couldn't help my reaction. At first, when I saw Rose in there in these boxers with holes that you could see through, I thought I was in the wrong changing room or mistaken. I was concentrating on getting something out of my locker when I heard this male voice behind me saying, "Are you not getting changed yet?" You can just hear the smirk in his voice saying, why does he care if she's changing? Quote, I looked over my shoulder and he was looking over his, just staring. I felt uncomfortable. I could feel the hair standing up on my arm. I just kept looking for my lip cream or whatever, but all I could think was, there's this man in the changing room. We were in a locked room. There's a pin entry and sort of around a corner, so no one else was near. He asked again. I was thinking, why does he want to know if I'm getting changed? Does he want to provoke a reaction or watch me get changed? Inside, I was thinking, I'm not getting changed in front of you, no, but I couldn't say anything. Then he gave this smirk, this expression, which was the same one my dad had when he was doing the abuse. He could see I was uncomfortable and he didn't seem to care. She claims that Rose's question about whether she was going to get changed was repeated 3 times. This guy was like, why aren't you changing? While she's having, you can imagine, seeing his smirk and it, she has this unusual reaction that maybe, like she said, maybe another woman wouldn't have had, but because it took her right back to her childhood and her father and that intrusion and the smirk, I can only imagine she was having some kind of panic attack. There's a sense of incredulity at her own reaction now in the cold light of day. This is a very strong and sensible woman, trained to be assertive when required, yet she went to pieces. This is a picture, by the way, of the 47,000 signatures that these nurses collected. And they took the petition to Downing Street. Here's more of the nurses. Quote, honestly, I panicked. I couldn't breathe. I thought I was going to pass out and that my legs were going to give way and I would fall to the floor. I just wanted to cry, but I couldn't cry. I felt silly. I didn't feel like an adult or a nurse who had spent all day looking after patients. I felt like a 6-year-old girl again. That's how he made me feel. I was so vulnerable. I was scared. I wanted to walk away, but I couldn't. I tried to use this grounding technique that I had learned to stop panic attacks, where you focus on specific sights, sounds, and smells to bring you back from the darkness. But this was the present day, and I didn't want to be here. She told no one that day, but at home, her husband could tell she was upset. Quote, when I did tell him, he said I needed to say something at work, but I thought I could brush it off. I didn't want to be thought of as bigoted. This poor woman. If you are in the woke left, maybe you don't consider yourself woke. Maybe you're under the delusion that this is liberalism. It's not. It's anti-science. It's anti-reason. It's anti-reality. But if you were in what I call the woke left, what many call the woke left, ask yourself, like, at what point they were successful in getting you to stop empathizing with a woman like this. Because you guys are being programmed to talk about empathy all the time. Empathy for the trans woman, empathy for the Rose in this story, right? What about this woman? What about this woman who was so afraid to say anything because of the culture that you guys have created, where she gets called a bigot and a transphobe for rightfully having objections to a man in her changing room, asking her to get undressed? What does no one, why do you guys not care about her? Or the 26 other nurses here in this hospital? Okay, it's like the one man, his having empathy for him trumps everything else, right? He gets to violate everyone else's rights because we have empathy for him. What? She couldn't brush this off. The nightmare started. For 30 years, I had had the same nightmare. Even if I was scared about something else completely, like a film, my father would be in the nightmare. But now Rose was in my nightmare. Sometimes it was Rose's body and my dad's face. None of this was Rose's fault, of course. But the sleepless nights and panic attacks and pounding heart when she went into the changing room were affecting Karen's work. She confided in a colleague, her well-being representative. They have a well-being representative at work. What do you guys want to guess? What do you want to guess the well-being representative said? I'll give you the well-being. Was the well-being representative concerned with her well-being? So she went to this well-being representative. From there, she had a conversation with Beth Hutchinson, who would emerge as the nurse's leader. Beth had heard from other nurses that they had been concerned about Rose's presence and behavior. Another nurse believed Rose had been staring at their breasts. So another nurse had complained and said, he's staring at our breasts. When Beth saw how upset I was about it, even the thought of going in the changing room, she said, no, this isn't right. So at least this woman that she got referred to from the wellness representative said, no, this isn't right. Okay. But get this. Beth had a word with her superior, but when word of the nurses' quiet concerns reached the HR department, they claimed, smacked down. The women were told it was Rose's right to be in that changing room. This man has a right to be in the women's changing room. He's got a right. It's a right. If you're in the left, I ask you to quickly pause this video. Can you define what rights are? Do you know what rights are? Because you guys misuse the word like this all the time. The women were told it was Rose's right to be in that changing room and that they could change elsewhere. Quote, they basically gave us a glorified cupboard, says Karen. They were told to go change there if it was a problem. So all 26 of these women, you go fit into this little closet. But the big women's changing room that we have for you is now going to be occupied by a man. But you guys can go use this closet. But we wouldn't dare tell Roe. We wouldn't dare tell the man to go use that closet. We're going to tell all of the women. Does this make any sense? His empathy for him, his feelings, everything trumps all of these women. Quote, being told that we needed to be re-educated was devastating, says Karen. To make it worse, get this, to make it worse, they suggested that Rose should be the one re-educating us. Rose would be happy to do it, they said. These women who went to complain about this man in their changing room, they were told that they were bigots. They needed a re-education. They needed a struggle session and a programming, and they were going to have the man that they had just complained about be the one to reprogram them. what, what world is this? This is not like, some people have gotten caught up in the woke left. I think you're so far in that cult, and I was in it. I get it. I think you're so far in it, you don't even have a memory of what the world was like 20 years ago, what you were like, or what you thought 20 years ago. I think 20 years ago, I think this would alarm you before you had all that re-education done to you. The women, all mothers, all furious, effectively declared war on their own bosses. Good for them, right? Engaging support from the legal charity Christian Concern. Some of them spoke out in the press, but not Karen. Not then. Quote, my children didn't know anything about the abuse. I hid behind the anonymity. Those girls had my back, and I will never be able to thank them enough. Why go public now? Quote, they've made me realize that I am strong enough to do it, she says. Bravo for her. As it stands, the tribunal is still due to be held in October, unless there is some settlement. Karen is not holding her breath that a change in the trust policy will be forthcoming. Quote, we don't know how far they will dig in, but the policy change is what we want. Also, a public apology. And yes, some compensation for what we've been through. To have had to fight for this is wrong. Just think of the cost. Not just the the emotional cost, like the time it takes, having all your attention focused on this, how it takes time out of your life. There is a cost and a sacrifice involved to pursue a lawsuit like this. But yes, the financial cost of pursuing it, right? The tribunal will examine the trust's responsibilities as an employer, but there's another almost unbelievable twist to this story, which suggests the trust also has questions to answer about its duty to Karen as a patient. This is you think the story's over here, right? That it's about the nurses and the changing room. No. This is where it gets even more dark, I think, and just absurd in how little they care about patients or women, or like not everything is trumped by the feelings of this man who says he's a woman. Everything is trumped by that. So here's the second part. Karen tells me that last summer, after legal papers had been served, so after they've started the lawsuit, right? And after the Mail on Sunday had broken the story of the Darlington nurses, Karen needed an urgent hysterectomy after years of problems with endometriosis. It was to be carried out at the Darlington Memorial, where everyone involved worked. It was her hospital was going to do the surgery. But just a few weeks before the procedure, she discovered to her horror that Rose was scheduled to be on duty in the operating theater that day and would be a part of her surgical team. Quote, "It was a gynecological procedure, and his role would have been down at that end, passing the consultant the tools," she says, incredulous. She immediately pointed out the obvious, as she thought, issue here. Quote, "I told them that because there was a legal dispute underway involving Rose, that it was a conflict of interests and entirely inappropriate that he should be involved in my surgery, especially intimate surgery like that. Separately, there was the issue of my childhood abuse. I made it clear that I wanted as few men in that room as possible." So she had already told them, I don't want, if possible, as a patient, I'm asking for female doctors and nurses, right? And this is what she was told. I was told, quote, "Well, Rose is a woman." So Rose has a right to be there. This is the upside down world we're in because of you on the woke left. This is where we're at, where she can't even request. Like we all expect when we go to a doctor to be able to, especially for intimate surgeries or intimate procedures, when women, we know when we go to the doctor, we can ask for a female doctor. That's a thing. They accommodate it. They're there to take care of the patient. It's not in their best interest to have a patient who's having a panic attack or who's, disturbed by a man doing the procedure. Like, this has always been a given. And not just for doctors. I mean, for other things that are less important. Like when you go to get a massage, you're able to say, like, I don't feel comfortable with a man massaging my naked body. I would like to have a woman. Like, you're able to suggest, you're able to ask for this. Not in woke world. Not in woke world, you're not, because they just say this man is is a woman. Sorry. It's his right. It's his right to be there. He's a woman. Woke world. This is what you have to deal with. This part's just crazy. Let me continue. The theater manager also said, "How would Rose feel if she was asked not to come into the operating theater that day? How would this man feel if we asked him not to come?" Karen was dumbstruck. Quote, "I said, frankly, and sorry to be blunt, but I don't care how Rose feels. Like, I don't care." Good for her for saying that. Like, I am the patient, right? Like, it's my surgery. It's my operation. Like, I don't care at all. Sorry. I don't care how he feels. Unbelievable. How would Rose feel? I'm asking you to center Rose's feelings here. I want you to center this man's feelings when it comes to your uh, your OBGYN surgery, your intimate surgery. Let's think about how this man feels. If you don't let him be there to be a part of it, nobody gives a crap. She did the right thing. I'm so, to be the woman, to be one of the nurses who was afraid of coming forward and putting her name on it, to be one of the anonymous ones, to then get to this place where she can reject that manipulative tactic. It is a manipulative tactic. It is. The woke use this, and many of you who are still in that cult, like, they have used this to get you to say things that are absurd. They've manipulated you out of fear of being called a bigot, or being a bigot. Oh my goodness, what if I'm a bigot? They've manipulated you. They've used an abuser's tactic. It's an abuser's tactic. What about the abuser's feelings? That's what abusers do. What about me? So I can't believe it, but he said this to her. How would Rose feel? And she said, frankly, and I'm sorry to be blunt, but I don't care how Rose feels. End quote. It made no sense. Shifts are changing all the time. Like work shifts are changing all the time. They didn't even have to tell Rose a reason if they were worried about that. Karen escalated her complaint, putting her concerns in writing. Quote, and I got an email back saying that they could not accommodate my request for Rose to be replaced. They said they would cancel my operation and I could go elsewhere. This is her own hospital telling her this. We're going to cancel your surgery. You go somewhere else rather than hurt this poor man's feelings. This man who thinks he's a woman or wants to be a woman. They said that they would cancel my operation. I could go elsewhere. I couldn't believe it. I needed that operation and I had been with my consultant for years. After everything, I felt I was being punished. I said, I am asking this as a patient, but they didn't care. It was only when Karen got lawyers involved that the trust backed down. She had to go out. Again, think of the cost, the personal cost, the financial cost. She had to get lawyers involved. Then the trust backed down and the operation did go ahead and Rose was not in the room. But she had to get lawyers in. Quote, but the very fact that it went as far as it did shows how this gender ideology that they've been clinging to trumps everything, even patient care. She's right. Her fury and sense of being utterly abandoned is palpable. There's a thing we have in nursing called the 6 C's. They're the values that you live by. They are care, compassion, competence, courage, communication, and commitment. The trust have shown me none. They haven't cared about my dignity, my privacy, or my rights. She gets tearful as she remembers how she told her children, her daughter is 22 and her son is 20, that she was even involved in the Darlington nurses' fight. They had watched the news reports and they were aware their mother worked there, but no more. And then when I told them, there's one nurse who suffered childhood abuse. Well, that was me. Her daughter was upset and asked me why I hadn't told her about the abuse earlier. Her son wasn't quite sure what to say. He said, oh, and you could hear the emotion in his voice. And then he said, Mom, are you okay? That just breaks my heart. She says that's not a question, or it continues, that is not a question that her employers have ever asked if she's okay. They've known from the off that one of the nurses had been abused, and they've never said, who is it? Does she want to speak to us? Does she need help? Last October, the health secretary did sit down with the nurses, Karen included, and she came out of that meeting with hope. Quote, he did listen, and he told me that he wasn't going to sit in front of me and tell me I needed to broaden my views. And we left that meeting feeling positive because he promised to do something. Then he said that he was waiting for the Supreme Court ruling. Well, okay, the Supreme Court ruled. We covered that on this channel on Deprogrammed. They ruled that men are not women legally under the law. It doesn't matter what they get stamped on their documents or what a piece of paper says, what kind of certificate they have, men are not women. We don't live in a crazy world. I mean, we've been living in one, but they basically said no more. So this guy said he was waiting for the Supreme Court ruling. Well, he's had that now and he needs to act. It is his job to fix the NHS. Well, come and fix it for the women. A hospital policy can be changed in a day. The law is with us. It's the hospital policy that is not. What would you say to West Streeting now? And then Karen says, I would say in the nicest possible way, do your job. Do your job. Last night, the health secretary told the MOS, I am determined to ensure the rights, voices, and spaces of women who use the NHS for work or as patients are protected. I expect NHS Trust to uphold the law and follow the clarity that the Supreme Court ruling provides. Yet, It seems that County Durham and Darlington NHS Foundation Trust is still pondering a way forward. They still want to go through this tribunal. Like they could just change the policy, but they're not. Not yet, they haven't. Quote, the trust acknowledges the recent Supreme Court judgment, a spokesman said, and is taking time to carefully understand and consider its implications. At present, individual changing facilities are available for the women, for all of the 26 women and more who haven't complained, but all of the women, hey, you can go into this closet. That's available for you. This man gets to use the women's changing room, but you guys can take turns going in and out of that little closet. At present, individual changing facilities are available, and we continue to review what provision is possible within the constraints of our hospital estate, end quote. The trust added, we want all our colleagues and patients to feel safe, respected, and supported at work and in our care. So we're very sorry when this is not the experience. Right? Like, right, when you make a female nurse who works for you have to bring lawyers in and threaten to sue, pay lawyers to come in order to remove a man from her intimate operation. Like that's it. That's caring about caring about your patients and your employees. I don't think so. They continue, we are committed to providing a safe, compassionate environment for all patients and staff. No, you're committed to providing a hierarchy where any man who says he's a woman is at the top. And that's it. And it trumps everything else. Those words still ring hollow to Karen. A few weeks ago, almost 2 years since this whole shambolic mess kicked off. It's 2 years she's been fighting this, guys. She got a colorful tattoo on her arm, quote, representing my way out of the darkness and back into the light. Karen cannot say that she is comfortable being in the spotlight now, but she is clear that it is necessary to show other women that they can speak out when they have done nothing wrong. Her father, she tells me, was never held to account for the abuse he inflicted on her. In 2002, he took his own life. Nothing to do with any guilt about what he had done to her. Quote, he was found with a 15-year-old girl. He knew the police were going to put him on the sex offenders registry. He phoned a family member and he said, I've done something bad. There's no coming back from it. He left his belongings on the top of a cliff and he jumped. A dog walker found him the next day. I felt terrible for that woman, she says. I do too. I don't feel like I don't have it in me. I don't feel terrible for him and what he did. I don't like jumping. I don't. I do feel terrible for that woman who had to find him. So that's the article. I think if you have friends who are still in the woke left, like I said, there's still a lot of people who are in that world who are swayed by that ideology. I still have private conversations with people I know about these topics who are still in it, people who are intelligent people who are still in it. And this is a good one, in my opinion, to send them. If you have the kind of friend who's at least open-minded enough to have the conversation with you, this is a good one to send them, because emotion is what is used to manipulate them and to silence them, the people in the woke left. It's what is used to control them. They tell them you have to have emotion for and empathy for these men who say they're women. You have to care about these men. Don't you care about these men? And this story centers, to use their word, one of the women who's at the center of this, who's the heart of this lawsuit. And I think this story begs the reader to spare a little bit of that compassion and empathy they're so keen to talk about having, right? To spare a little bit of that for these women, to see them as people, to see them as people who are deserving of all the things that the trust in this article that the hospital's paying lip service to. Care, compassion, all those things, like to actually have that for them. And so if you have a friend who's open-minded enough to have these kind of conversations with them, I think this is a good story to send them, because it's got a personal anecdote at the center of it. It's not just data, it's not just stats. You know, it humanizes it for them, maybe. Thank you, guys. Good to see some familiar faces in the chat. Poetry Painter's here. Hey, Poetry Painter. Haven't heard from you in a while. It's good to see you here. For $10, thank you for supporting Deprogrammed. She says, it's almost like they enjoy making women uncomfortable, and especially ones that have already fought abuse trauma. Hence the push to get into the rape shelters too. Yes, it is. That is the case for some of these men. I think a lot of these men, the majority, this whole explosion that we've seen in recent years since woke, burst onto the scene, became the culturally dominant religion in the West. And since the TRA, the trans part of that ideology, went mainstream, and they've started re-educating people, and they've started brainwashing kids even, and trying to normalize it and everything. Since then, we've seen this explosion in people who are claiming to be trans. And it is my opinion that the majority of these people have never actually experienced what is historically, traditionally been called gender dysphoria. And there are many based trans people, by that I mean people who call themselves trans, or say, they've experienced gender dysphoria, who try and present as the opposite sex, but who live in reality and say, I know I'm not the opposite sex. I know this is a mental disorder, the gender dysphoria thing, this feeling uncomfortable in my body. There are many of those people who will also say that the majority of all of these new, trans cases are not men who have gender dysphoria. They are men who have sexual fetishes. They are predators. They're autogynephiles. If you don't know that word, if you're on the woke left and you don't know that word, you should look it up. It's a paraphilia. It's a sexual fetish involving seeing oneself as the opposite sex. It's rampant today. It's rampant in porn. We know there's a huge porn addiction. But a lot of these guys are autogynephiles. And I think some of them get off on not only seeing themselves as women, but forcing other people to see their fetish, like, out in public. And yes, invading women's spaces and making vulnerable women feel uncomfortable, lording that power and control over them. No wonder it made her think of her father, what he did to her. No wonder. Thank you for that, Poetry Painter. John Thomas, thank you for supporting Deprogrammed. John Thomas for $5 says, can we stop pretending that Rose being involved with her surgery was anything but a deliberate provocation? Correct. I would agree with that. She never should have had to look at that operating schedule and see that someone she's currently involved in a lawsuit with is going to be a part of her operation. Like, there are so many people who could have caught that and made sure, oh, that's not going to be a good idea, right? Like, how many people had to sign off on that to get Rose on the schedule to be the person there for her surgery, for her hysterectomy? Jennifer Atkins, it's all the cluster bees taking advantage where convenient. Yes, I agree. I do think that I both think that woke ideology functions a lot like cluster B personality disorder. It has characteristics of cluster B personality disorder. And I also think a lot of people who are in the woke cult, who are woke themselves, have cluster B. Not all of them, but a lot of them. I think it's probably a high number. Of course, predators would be attracted to an ideology that protects them and shields them and, puts their feelings for them and empathy for them and gives them all the power and access and all the rights, right? Like, protect their, of course they would be drawn to that. I want to show you something somewhat related. Like I said, there's so many topics in the news lately, and this was another one that I just saw, and this is about men in women's spaces as well, specifically in sports. That thing that they keep saying is not happening. It happened again, where men are winning women's trophies. They're taking women's spots on state, national, world events. Like they're taking their scholarships, they're taking their medals. And so this was a couple of stories that I saw shared. And since it's a similar topic, I'm going to pull this one up. We'll cover this one too. Okay, this is Jennifer Say on X. Let's see if you guys can see this. Here we go. Jennifer Say, the thing that never happens is happening all the time. Now, whenever I see these stories now, I think this is a good tactic to take too if you're trying to highlight this kind of stuff. Is people keep using this phrase, that thing that never happens, here it is again. Just kind of trying to remind them, if they'd see it, if people in the woke left see it, that just reminding them that, you guys have bought into this lie that this is not happening, but here it is yet again. This is reality. This is happening. So she says, just this past weekend, a boy who goes by A.B. Hernandez placed third in girls' track and field events at the California CIF Southern Section prelims. He will go on to compete at the CIF State Track and Field Championships at the end of the month. Hernandez placed third in the girls' long jump, first in the triple jump, and eighth in the high jump. In every event, he displaced a multitude of girls from qualifying for the state finals. These things affect these girls, not just like not being able to participate, being robbed of a spot that you earned at the state finals could affect scholarships down the road that you get offered, positions on college teams. Like all of this affects these girls. Beyond the placements, the female competitors who wore Save Girls Sports t-shirts at the event were made to remove them. So they made any girl that had a shirt on that said Save Girls Sports, they were told that's inappropriate. They had to take them off. You're at a girls sporting event and somehow it's inappropriate to wear a shirt that says like, let's save girls sport. No, that's offensive now. Suddenly that's offensive. Again, you're prioritizing the feelings of these men or these boys. In a woman's space, in a woman's sport, you're saying, look, their feelings are more important than anything else. So important that you can't wear a shirt that says girls sports on it at a girls sports event. Because of this absurd upside down world that we're living in, this woke world. Additionally, this past week, this account, XXXY Athletics, highlighted male softball pitcher Marissa is the name this guy's taken, Marissa Rothenberger, who is dominating girls softball in Minnesota with a .12 batting against average, almost unheard of, even among top tier elite pitchers in the MLB. The top stats in the MLB are .200 to .250. Rothenberger is crushing the elite stats. Okay, so if you're like me, and I probably read the way you read these stats wrong. I don't know enough about baseball. But if you're like me and you don't know enough, this isn't hard to grasp. This is just math. So what this means is, it doesn't mean that this guy, this boy who's participating in the female softball league is a faster pitcher than the MLB stars. That's not what it means. It means that because he's exclusively pitching against women, because he's playing on a women's team and the opponents that, are women, that he is getting more strikes. He's got a .12 batting against average, which is unheard of. MLB pitchers don't have that. You know why? Because they're pitching against men. They're pitching against men. But because he's pitching against women, it's like, everybody's like, oh my God, we've never seen a pitcher like this. Look at how many strikeouts he has. It's like 14 strikeouts a game or something crazy that's unheard of because he's pitching. He is a man pitching against women. It's crazy. Again, crazy town. Given the current NCAA rules, which require that proof of sex come in the form of a birth certificate, which can be changed now in 44 states, there's nothing to stop this guy, Rothenberger, from going on to compete in women's softball in the NCAA and dominating. This is completely unfair. This is unsportsmanlike. If you care about sports, forget the issue of whether a man can be a woman for a second, which they can't. Forget that for a second. If you claim to care about sports, like, this is unsportsmanlike. This is not sportsmanship. This is completely unfair. So there's a video here I want to show you.
A male pitcher absolutely.
Hold on. Let's see if I can make this bigger. So this guy covers this pitcher. I just want you to see this guy. I want you to see how tall this pitcher or this man is compared to the women, because you're going to see him with some of his teammates in a second. And also the commentary of the guys who are doing the sports commentary. What do you call it? Like color commentary, whatever. What do you guys sports guys call this? Listen to the people doing the commentary, because they are talking as if this is a woman. They all know it's a man, and they're talking like it's a woman, and they're like, wow, she's amazing. She's just done. Look at how many strikeouts she's getting. We've never seen. I mean, her arms are just so long, and she's so tall, and it's incredible. She's a great female player. Like, what? Okay, listen.
Meet Marissa Rothenberger, a male pitcher absolutely dominating girls softball in Champlin, Minnesota.
And the pitch. Rothenberger back in the fifth. Swing and a miss here first. 0-2 pitch. Strike.
Rothenberger, at 6 feet tall, appears to tower over his female competition. In this game on May 6, 2025, he threw 7 strikeouts and shut out the opposing team. Apparently, Rothenberger's batting against average is .128, meaning opposing girl players only hit 12% of his pitches, which is considerably better than elite MLB players. He recently had an absurd 14 strikeouts in a single game. What was really amazing was listening to the dense male announcers as they gush about Rothenberger's wingspan and how hard he throws it.
See how she whips it? The long arms is just such an advantage.
Wow.
The whip action of that long arm for Rothenberger.
Do you hear them? They even say it's an advantage, but they're calling him she, and they're, oh, I wonder why he has this advantage. Oh, she's just born this way. She's just, this shit with her long arms are stuck. Oh my goodness. She's got a higher better batting against average than elite MLB players. She's just amazing. I wonder why she's got a better batting against average than elite MLB male players. That's because she's pitching against girls, you guys. He's like, look at her strong arm, long arms. Let me back up. That part kills me. But he calls it an advantage. It is an advantage, dude, because she's a boy.
Rothenberger's wingspan and how hard he throws it.
See how she whips it? The long arms is just such an advantage.
Wow.
The whip action of that long arm for Rothenberger.
He's a boy, guys. Get it? He's male, and it's cheating. Stop gushing. The male coach who coaches Rothenberger was gushing too.
Our pitchers do a phenomenal job. We have Marissa Rothenberger. They keep us in every game.
What's not to like about having a male ringer on the team? Except it's cheating, of course. Rothenberger is apparently hoping to get recruited onto a women's softball team in college somewhere, and I found his profile on recruiting sites. But hopefully this helps expose the cheater before he can cheat any more girls out of their opportunities, scholarships, and victories.
That you know, it's absurd. It's absurd. If you are here from the left, you try to see someone I've met recently, and like, what does she talk about on her podcast? And maybe this is the first time you've heard someone speak this honestly and openly about reality, and so it's probably an assault on your ears. Maybe it's, maybe you're feeling uncomfortable inside because you're not, oh my gosh, what am I listening to? Is this transphobic? Nobody has to know you're listening to this video. Nobody has to know you're watching. And I'm inviting you to join us in reality that this is a man who has an obvious advantage pitching against women, such an advantage that he has a better batting against average than pitchers in the MLB, in Major League Baseball. He's got a better average. Oh my goodness, this woman's got a better pitching average. Get this woman to the MLB. I would love to see this woman pitch against some men. See what happens to that batting against average. Put this woman in Major League Baseball. See what happens to that batting against average. You got him pitching against girls. Can we all, at least for this moment, lefties, can we all be in reality together? Unbelievable. Helena, sure, let him steal a woman's scholarship. Yeah, that's the woke left has manipulated people and abused people and programmed people to the point of them just going along. Yeah, they're like, yeah, they're afraid to be called bigots. They're like, yeah, I guess we should give him the woman's scholarship to a college to play on a softball team and call him her while we do it, right? Helena also says, I can assure you he'd be a mediocre athlete against other men. Yes, my point exactly. Let's get him into how would that, wow, this woman is like dominating. Let's get this woman to the MLB. How cool would that be? Let's see. In Poetry Painter, the long arm's such an advantage. Duh. Yeah, duh. It's laughable. So since that was related, I wanted to show you guys that one. There are a couple other stories, but they're not exactly related. So I'm not sure. What do you guys think? Should I show you something that's completely opposite, something else I saw that's really disturbing, that's not related to the trans thing or not? What do you think? You tell me in the chat. I can just wrap it up and make this very focused, or I can show you this thing that is very disturbing that I just saw. This is why this is on my mind. I was like, I'm just going to do the trans topic today, but I saw this very disturbing thing. I guess, what do they do on other live streams? Put a 1 in the chat if you want to see the very disturbing, unrelated topic before we close out the show. And put a 2 if you're like, nah, it's good. See you later. Show us the thing. Okay. I guess if you say I saw something very disturbing, you got to show it now. Okay. 1. Okay. You guys want to see them? This is just bad. Okay. This is Dr. Ben Braddock. And now for something completely different. What was that, Monty Python? And now for something completely different. Look at this. Okay. I saw this morning. Dr. Ben Braddock. I guess he's an editor. I'm not sure who he is, but this came up in my feed. Ticks are spreading a disease that makes people allergic to red meat. Some farmers and ranchers who get it cannot even go near their livestock. Every week, I hear of more cases near me. The federal government needs to treat this with much more urgency. Now, if you go into the comments here, you're going to see a bunch of people who are like, this happened to me. I was bit by a tick. I couldn't get around a cow. Itchy rashes. If I ate beef, So this is concerning, first of all. Is there some new disease? There's some disease that ticks are spreading that's making people allergic to red meat and to even being around their, livestock. And it reminded me immediately of this video that I've covered before, and somebody else thought of it too. A lot of people were sharing it in the comments. Do you guys remember this video? This was I can't remember if this was at a World Economic Forum. It was one of these globalist, elitist talking head symposiums. If you haven't seen this yet, I think I did show this before, but just listen to this guy. He's talking about why we should stop eating meat. It's bad for the environment. Why should we stop eating meat? Climate change. Because climate change. This is this globalist future they have planned for us plebes. Won't be able, you shouldn't want to eat red meat. And then he says, but we have a problem because humans like to eat meat. Humans are naturally omnivorous. Like we eat meat, we eat vegetables, So how do we overcome this problem? And then he just listened to what he proposes.
Examples. So one is that people eat too much meat, right? And if they were to cut down on their consumption of meat, then they would it would actually really help the planet. But people are not willing to give up meat. Yeah.
Again, I don't even necessarily believe you that it would help the planet. You guys lie about this kind of stuff all the time. This is a toxic empathy. This is the same thing as, here's one way it's related to the trans story. You once again are telling people, you are manipulating people, and you are trying to control people by using empathy against them, by telling them, if you don't go along with this, you don't care about the planet. Have some empathy for the planet, huh? Right? Like it's an abuser tactic. That's one way it's similar. And yes, if Jennifer's still here, I know you're going to say cluster B. It is cluster B. But he's like, it's good for the planet. You need to have some empathy for the planet. That's why we should all stop eating red meat.
Then they would, it would actually really help the planet. But people are not willing to give up meat. Yeah, some people will be willing to, but other people, they may be willing to, but they have a weakness of will. They say, wow, this steak is just too juicy. I can't do it. I'm one of those, by the way. So,
too juicy, too delicious, and also good for you. And also good for you. You are designed to eat meat. We are omnivores. It's natural. It's natural law. It's not just that it's juicy and delicious. We're not talking about like ho-hos and ding-dongs here. Oh, but it's so juicy and delicious, but I know it's bad for me. Protein is good for you. There's a reason your body craves it. Back when I was a pescatarian, I was a pescatarian for like, I don't know, probably as long as I was woke. 20 years almost. I was a vegetarian at first in college, briefly, but I couldn't sustain it because my body craved meat. So I started eating fish. And for 20 years, I only ate fish. And I was like, I cut out, I didn't eat any red meat. I didn't eat any poultry, no chicken, nothing, just fish. But there were these times when my body would crave it. Especially back when I was working out all the time, doing weightlifting, or when I was doing marathons. I would come back from a workout and my body, you've probably had this experience where your body is like, steak, like it's just talking to you and you can't deny it. And my body was like, steak. But then I was like, well, how about some beans, body? That would feed it beans. And I'm so glad I'm not pescatarian anymore. I enjoy red meat now. I don't, I overcame that thing part of it was indoctrination, to be honest. But I overcame that thing that had stopped me from eating red meat. But your body craves it for a reason. It is natural. And so now listen to him talk about some of the ways that all these globalists are thinking about how they can re-engineer us to make us allergic to red meat.
I'm one of those, by the way. So, but so here's the thought, right? So it turns out that we know a lot about, we have these intolerance to, for example, I have milk intolerance. And some people are intolerant to crayfish. So possibly we can use human engineering to make it the case that we're intolerant to certain kinds of meat, to certain kinds of bovine proteins. And there's actually analogs of this in life. There's this thing called the Lone Star tick, where if it bites you, you'll become allergic to meat. I can sort of describe the mechanism. So that's something that we can do through human engineering. We can kind of...
Did you hear that? He mentions the tick. If it bites you, you become allergic to meat. Do you, I just want, knowing everything we know about the globalists, everything we know about these corporate elite overlords, about everything we know about the World Economic Forum, everything we know about what they think of us, everything we know about our government and the stuff they've done behind our backs, do you think that they're not studying this? We've also covered where they've talked about engineering a kind of mosquito. They have talked about this openly at symposiums, and so, engineering a mosquito that will vaccinate you against your will. Like these are evil people. This is Dr. Evil kind of stuff. Look at, he's so happy about it. He's like, that's so interesting. There's this tick. Maybe we could make more of these ticks. Maybe we could make all, like, put all these ticks out there to make people allergic to meat. Cause people don't know what's best for the planet. We got to prioritize the planet.
Engineering, we can kind of possibly address really big world problems through human engineering. Another.
Yeah. So that's disturbing. Sandman says, oh, they are absolutely all over this. Yes, they are. I don't doubt for a second that they are all over all kinds of crazy stuff that's not good for us. We know now, they don't even dispute anymore that COVID originated from the lab that engineers COVID viruses to be more deadly to humans and more contagious for humans. They don't even dispute that anymore. At the beginning, the first few years, they would go after anybody who asked, like, could it have come from the lab that's there in Wuhan? They would go after you and try to ruin you. They tried to brainwash us all. They brainwashed a lot of people. If you're in the woke left, you surely got brainwashed. But they don't dispute that anymore. Like, they do things like this. They took that gain of function research to Wuhan. Our tax dollars still paid for it through the NIH, which gave money to Eco Health Alliance in New York, which funded the Wuhan lab. We still paid for it, even though Obama said we wouldn't do that kind of research in the US anymore. Well, they just took it to China and we still paid for it, our tax dollars. So yeah, I mean, I hear that and I'm like, okay, they're engineering ticks. They're going to try and make it to where we can't eat meat, something that's good for us. Poetry painter, people who tend to be anemic need beef. Yes, that's another reason why I now eat red meat. I am anemic. I've had anemia my whole life since I was a kid. Take iron supplements when I'm on top of things. Sometimes I don't take them. But I am one of those people. Thank you guys for hanging out today. I think I'll wrap it up there. Thanks for letting me cover that crazy thing. I just saw that and I couldn't get it out of my head today. I was like, okay, this is definitely something they're thinking about and working on probably. I appreciate you guys in the chat. Thank you for the super chats. Thanks for supporting the channel. Somebody asked a couple questions. I see in the chat. Who is it? Somebody's asking about book club. I haven't done book club in a while. I've just had a lot going on. I apologize. Between the house renovation and I had a bunch of different gig jobs I started at the beginning of the year. I've just quit another one of those gig jobs. So there's freeing up more time. So we are going to bring back book club. I promise you. I will let you know when we do the next one. I hesitate to put a date on it yet because I don't want to not deliver. So I will pick a good date and we will do it. What was the other question? Oh, Adam Coleman is kicking ass. He's been doing all these interviews lately in the UK. That interview is still coming out. We just had some issues editing it. It's the first one that we've done in person with multiple cameras. And so there's multiple camera angles to edit and everything. And so this is how we're learning how to do it. So this one's taking a little longer than it will going forward. But that interview is coming out and this week. And then I also, like I said at the beginning, I'm working on trying to do some conversations with people about this whole explosive woke right topic and the divisions that are happening in the anti-woke world about this phrase woke right. I'm trying to do some discussions with people who disagree with me or disagree with one another. And so I'll let you know about those. Those are coming. So Mark, yeah, I think we should probably do R.R. Reno's book, don't you? Thank you, Mark, for being here. I do. Let's just read it together. We'll pick a date and we'll do it. Don't get blackpilled. Oh, Uncle Bubba, I love your screen name. Don't worry. I'm not blackpilled. The thing is, yes, like I said at the beginning, it's a little demoralizing to see so many people that I have previously agreed with one another on so many things now fighting online. There's this, like I said, this division happening, and that's demoralizing, but it's just a temporary feeling. Humans, we have these temporary feelings that are normal and natural. Sometimes we feel depressed. Sometimes we feel exuberant and happy. Sometimes We feel demoralized when we see fighting and stuff, infighting and new divisions that were not previously there. And those things are normal, but no, don't worry. I'm not black pilled. I have Jesus. I'm not cheesy person, but I am. And, you know, as I've said before, if you start to feel demoralized, if you are a believer, I mean, you know the Alpha and the Omega. You know who holds you in their hand. There's a constant, there's a foundation in your life that gives you a contentment, even through the difficulties. There's a C.S. Lewis quote. I think it's life with God is not a life without difficulties. It is having peace or contentment through the difficulties. I think that's the quote. It's a really, he's just the best. So yes, hit like if you like the video. Thank you guys for being here, and thank you for being here. And if you think this is one you can share with people that you know who are in the leftist world, who are still caught up in that crazy cult, then share this video with them. If you think the video would be off-putting, but you can share the article with them. This is a good story to tell people, and see what they think about it. I'll see you guys on Wednesday. Take care. Bye-bye.